Hey guys, welcome back to Radio 815, the podcast dedicated to examining the work of writer-director J.J. Abrams as well as his greater Bad Robot universe. I'm your host for this week. My name is Marcelo Inostroza, joined as always by my fellow co-host, Matt Crandall. And on today's edition of the show, we will continue to make our way through Alcatraz, Season 1, Episode 9. And the episode that we'll be talking about today is the episode entitled Sonny Burnett. So, Matt, I have a question for you. I am looking for a piece of plywood about your height. Can you help me out and try to find it?
Yeah, I liked that scene where, classic cliche of somebody goes to a hardware store and asks some kind of inappropriate questions that the hardware store worker ends up giving them a side eye like, what am I contributing to here? And I did like that. As we dive back in, this episode opens kind of with and I think I know what you did last summer scenario where these two guys are driving and they're going around some like bends and some cliffs, and all of a sudden the guy's like slams on the brakes and he's like, somebody was in the middle of the road, and his friend's like, oh, you old man, there was nobody there. And then they turn around and there is a guy with a gun who proceeds to blow the passenger away, just shoots him point blank, and kidnaps one of the men. We quickly find out that this is Sonny Burnett, one of the returned Alcatraz inmates. He is played by Theo Rossi, who is best known as Juice from Sons of Anarchy. So he shows up here, and again, this is going to be an episode where we are going to spend a lot of time with our dudes in the past. And sometimes the stuff in the future, or like in the present that they give us, and then we flash back, we can appreciate the flashbacks. But this falls into the trap that I keep finding myself reiterating of, we do not care about these inmates. Like, unless, and like this one happens to be someone who like is a face and is an actor now that like, you do the Leo point, you're like, oh yeah, that guy. But when he's introduced and then we spend so much time in the flashbacks with Sonny, I'm just like, I do not care. I can't care less. Which is frustrating because they tease us with some really good stuff right off the bat. So the beginning of the episode is the Sonny carjacking, kidnapping, and it is a meeting between Hauser and Ray. And Hauser shows up at the bar. Robert Forster finally back. He's only in a handful of episodes, and that's one of the other frustrating things about this show is that character, so cool, barely in it. And Hauser shows up and they're talking, and Ray says, you gotta let what's her name? You gotta let Blondie quit the team. Yeah, Rebecca. You gotta let Rebecca quit the team. And Hauser says, why now? Why are you asking me now? She's been working for me for months. What about now makes you want to get her out? And of course he says, let me guess, you've seen Tommy. And he's like, yeah, maybe I've seen Tommy around. And so like the Tommy and Ray and Hauser like triangle of old Alcatraz inmate, two old Alcatraz guards, and this pair of brothers, the con man, the criminal, and the like cop, is such an interesting dynamic. And they give it to us for 90 seconds. And that's fucking it. Marcelo, are you starting to feel as frustrated as I am? Like we got 4 episodes left of this series, and I'm like, guys, the mixture has been off from the start, and like I just can't believe they haven't recalibrated.
Yeah, I am extremely frustrated that the writers and the higher ups of the show haven't realized that their grander story is more interesting than their base story. Listen, I was waiting for Ray to have a conversation with Hauser for like episodes, like you mentioned, their dynamic having a connection to Alcatraz and to Rebecca is outstanding within its own right. But I really think that the most interesting parts of this episode for me is is having to do with the overall mythology of the show, and I couldn't care two fucking squirts of piss about Sonny fucking Burnett because, like Matt and I have mentioned in past episodes and in this episode, they spent the writers spent far too much time trying to justify the behavior of their villains by flashing back to 1960. If they want to flash back to 1960, what they do in the past should have some effect to what they're doing in the future, but it just doesn't work. This guy, Sonny Burnett, looks like he's a criminal who constantly wants to prove himself and basically in the present is hunting down the daughter of one of his victims from 68. Right? And furthermore, he has no grander connection to the grander plot of how the hell these prisoners from the 60s came back to our present day. Like, are you kidding me with
Well,
with the amount of episodes that we have left? This is inexcusable. Now I know what Matt's going to say. It was different time. And the writers probably didn't know that they were about to get the rug taken out from under them with cancellation. But still, you got to realize that your ship is sinking, and you have to change you have to jump to save the ship.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that they have introduced, and specifically in this episode, they try and give Hauser a deeper motivation. But it's not landing in the way I think that they thought it would. So one of the key things early in this episode is that Hauser and fucking Alcatraz weirdo doctor have a quick meeting as well. So like there's a lot of interesting stuff in the first 10 minutes and then like none of it goes anywhere. They meet up and this doctor is like, you know what, man, I've been trying to figure out about these 63s and whatever the hell, and there seems to be like this common thing, this colloidal silver in their blood. And I think maybe like that was what the warden and your friend were doing to these guys back in Alcatraz, was something to do with this colloidal silver. And if we were to get a live one who had enough colloidal silver in his blood, maybe we could transfuse it to somebody and it would wake them up. And so like Sam Neill is like, oh shit, like my girlfriend is in a coma still and she hasn't been able to wake up, and he's been moody because Lucy Banerjee or whatever identity she's going by. Like we've been waiting for her to wake up and like fill us in on all the shit that we need to be filled in on, and it's not happening. And so he tells him, instead of just bagging and tagging some of these Alcatraz guys and locking them up in your Supermax prison, like we got to bring this guy in and like run his blood. So whatever you do with Sonny Burnett, catch him alive. We need to do this. It might help Lucy. And of course, it's a thing that goes nowhere because by the time they actually do get Sonny Burnett and it all wraps up, doctor's like, oops, I was wrong. He doesn't have any of it in his blood. So that wasn't it. And he's like, oh yeah, I don't know which guys they were fucking around with on the experiments. I wasn't really part of it, so like I can't be sure. Sorry about that. And Sam Neill's like, he basically says, bitch leave. Get out of my fucking sight. I'm gonna kill you because you gave me false hope. But this is something we have always wondered, like, why these guys? How did this happen? And adding this thing that, oh, maybe it's this magic silver in their blood is interesting, but to then have us go through the motions of Sam Neill getting excited and catching this guy thinking that he can help his friend, and then to just dead end right away. I'm like, obviously this has to come back with someone else in the next 4 episodes, but don't do it like that. Introduce it and have it be like, holy shit, this guy's like midi-chlorian Jesus. He has so much silver in his fucking blood. We can wake your friend up and we can open portals and shit. Like, if we're gonna do it, do it.
That idea of finally introducing a story mechanic that connects to the grander plot of the show with this silver blood, and that being the sort of cog that can allow the prisoners from 63 to travel to our present day is a great idea. It's a great idea, but I absolutely agree with you. The placement of that idea in this episode, it was introduced like in the first 10 to 30 minutes, and then we went on with the dribble of this episode with the prisoner of the week, and then it was just forgotten and dropped. But I think Rebecca's grandfather's going to have it. Rebecca's grandfather, I bet you, is going to have the blood that Hauser needs to bring back the psychiatrist girl that she has a crush on, who's been in a coma for God knows how long now. So I did appreciate the I did appreciate that the writers tried to expand on the lore of the show, but I think it's just too fucking late. And it's just really, really annoying because, like me and Matt have said, this show has so much goddamn potential, but I think it was made in the wrong time. And if it was made like maybe 5 years ago, or even if this show was made now, I think the writers would be allowed to tell a tied together story without criminals of the week, and have the criminals of the week tie in to the grander story of the show, or what this or the story that the show is trying to tell. Like,
yeah, well, and it still boils down to, like, they copied the dynamic from Fringe, where we've got older guy, he's not senile like Walter, but then we've got, like, the female detective, and then we've got, like, the other guy who's kind of the outsider in a way that Peter was in Soto, but obviously not like the leading man, charismatic. No. But we got the nerdy thing. But every episode, I'm like, you know what I would totally just love? Fucking 35 minutes of Soto and Madsen doing banter back and forth while they're in a car, doing a stakeout on a 63, with Hauser occasionally checking in and busting their balls. Right? Like, this is the kind of shit that I'm like, Hurley is in this for 3.5 minutes. Madsen is in it for 5 minutes. The rest of the time, it's all like people we don't know and don't care about. So this episode, the Sonny Burnett, in the past, we do see that he kidnapped a young girl, and, like, Munchausen syndrome, she fell in love with him. They were like a Bonnie and Clyde. He got arrested. When he went to jail, he thought he could bribe the guys inside to make sure he didn't get his ass kicked. He had some protectors, got taken care of. He tells them, go get my stash of cash. Everything will be good. They go, there's nothing there because his sweetheart stole it. And so now in the present, the guy that he carjacked and kidnapped is his ex-kidnapped sweetheart's husband. And he murders him so that he can use it as a diversion to get the cops away, so he can go back and talk to basically what was the love of his life that he feels is the biggest betrayal of his life. And it's all this, like I said, Bonnie and Clyde shit. And, the girl who's now much older and, seeing Sonny and he's the same age, that freaks her out. She's played by Wendy Crewson, who's like a legendary Canadian TV actress. She did a little run on 24. Like anybody who's like anybody in Canada, Kiefer always hooked them up with jobs. So, like, of course I see these people and I'm like, oh, it's Wendy Crewson. She's a great Canadian actress. But then I'm just like, ugh, but she's saddled with this fucking storyline, and, like, I couldn't care less. And then Sonny Burnett's going to go after her daughter to get back at her after he already killed her husband. And I'm like, where is Soto? I want Soto to fill me in on some funny Alcatraz inmate tidbits. some funny comic book shit, some nerd culture stuff, while Madsen rolls her eyes and Hauser gets increasingly pissed off, and we just don't get it. We don't get it. They're running around. We go to a stable. We go to all this stuff, and we keep having the flashbacks where, Sonny Burnett gets his ass kicked. He gets put in solitary. When he gets out, the guys that have perceived that he wronged them, he steps up and fucking annihilates one by gouging his eyes out. And we see like some of the warden dynamics of like the warden is putting Sonny in these dangerous positions on purpose. But again, I'm more interested in our core characters, that we are just let riding the bench the whole time. The whole time. Nothing fun, nothing cool. And we added like the thing that Rebecca keeps dreaming that Tommy is, outside her window. And then by the end of the episode, Tommy is actually outside her window. And I'm like, we need to push this storyline forward faster. This is the stuff that we kind of care about. Because she even says to Ray, Tommy, I saw him on the roof and he came back and he killed my partner when he like was free and clear. He could have just kept running, but he came back and killed my partner. So like, is he a super evil man? Did my partner somehow wrong him? Was this some sort of Alcatraz mission? What the fuck's going on here? And everybody just dodges the answers. They're like, well, yeah, something must be going on here. It definitely sounds like something, but we're just kicking the ball down the field and we're never trying to score on the goal.
Is the reason that Rebecca's uncle didn't save her partner when she had that first encounter with him on the roof, did he know the real reason that he was did he know his true identity? Did he have some ties to what was happening in Alcatraz in the 60s? Is that why Rebecca's grandfather let her partner fall?
The only problem is that partner got killed in the first 5 minutes of the show. So even if we were to flash back to Alcatraz 63 and he was there, I wouldn't even know it was fucking him. Unless they're like, are you going to become the partner of Rebecca Madsen in 30 years from now? Like, that's the only problem, is that was a nothing character that means a lot to Rebecca, but means absolutely nothing to us watching the show.
I brought this up in the past. I'm sure that you have on subsequent episodes that we've talked about Alcatraz since we'll be covering the show. If you want us to really care about the villains that you bring back from the 60s, have the villains kidnap people important to our main group of characters. That could be a way to fix it. And furthermore, if you do that, you will effectively have to keep you will effectively have to keep Rebecca and Soto on screen much longer.
That would definitely be like one way to solve part of the problem. But again, that same scenario still gives us lots of these returning prisoners because they would be involved in the kidnapping of the people and whatever. I'm like, make sure these prisoners are only a MacGuffin that are only on the screen for like 2.5 minutes per episode. Like one guy comes back, does something fucked up, and then we're just tracking him down for the next 40 minutes. And then in the last frame, we catch him and we throw him into Hauser's Supermax prison. Like, I don't need any of their backstory. I don't even need to know why they are back. Just have them come back and do something fucked up. And then you can, if you want, in just passing, tell me why they were in Alcatraz. Have Soto fill us in. But I definitely don't need to see it. And I think this is the thing that, even like when I watched part of this show, I don't think I ever finished it. And anybody listening to this series will be like, this guy hates all of this shit. And like, yeah, a lot of this stuff I thought I liked at the time, and it maybe was just, there wasn't as much great TV. Like, I just feel like now, like if this was on now, I would have quit. Like, I would have quit. I would feel the same way as I feel when I start like a new sitcom that I'm really looking forward to. And by episode 3, if it's not grabbing you, now it's like there's too much stuff to watch that if something's not great, then it's not worth doing. And so, like, when we talk about 11/22/63, and I get really annoyed with it when we talk about undercovers and it starts so strong and then does absolutely nothing with its characters or its premise. And then this, that on paper is a cool, like, I understand why Fox wanted this. They wanted something like Fringe from Bad Robot that would draw people in and that they could probably pair with a show like Fringe. But then they spent so much money on this high concept thing and it just dead ended because by the time Lost wrapped, a lot of people were really exhausted with these mystery box shows and not getting enough answers or having the mystery not be that compelling. And I feel like we can tell here, like, you watch 6 seasons of Lost, you get to the end and you say, I didn't really love the ending. And then, the internet people who are like, they didn't know what it was. And it's like, well, guess what? 99% of shows, when you start it, you don't know the ending. You write yourself into corners, you find clever ways to get out of it. Like, yes, when a guy like Vince Gilligan does Breaking Bad, he kind of knows where it's going to end up. But that was a show specifically that, like, every season, they would write themselves into a corner in the finale, and they would literally have no fucking idea how they were going to get out until the writer's room met next season. And this show, I'm like, these guys didn't write down anything. They were just like, well, we got the good hook. We'll just keep rolling with it. People will be so jazzed by the mystery and they'll be so jazzed that, Hurley's back on their screens. But they didn't realize that, like, the mystery box show, as hooky as it was, people really soured on it when Lost ended and some people felt ripped off. That then if you don't have the goods quick, it just doesn't fly. And so, like, even nowadays, Netflix can put out a show that maybe takes its time, but if they drop all the episodes at once, then even if you don't like it that much by the end of the first, you'll just keep rolling. So, like, something like Three Body Problem, where there were a lot of people who were like, this is kind of dumb. And it's like, okay, yeah, but when you get to episode 5, like, it's killer, right? So, but because it all came out at once, it's not like you're waiting week to week and jumping on the boards and dissecting all this stuff of a boring, hookless show. So I just keep thinking, like, man, if somebody tackled this now, they could make, because they wouldn't bother dragging out, 1 season worth of story across like all these episodes. They would make sure that, like, we accelerated the plot and it was going and going and going. Somebody now, especially if they weren't afraid to let the main characters be the main characters and have some banter and adventures, like, this is a cool idea. It's just the execution is so poor.
I think this is a very cool idea, but everything that Matt said, I absolutely agree with. Um, are there any writers at the time that were connected to Bad Robot that you would that you would have felt comfortable bringing in to sort of, like, try and write the ship with the storytelling of this show? Because
it's funny because this is an interesting time where, like, a lot of the Bad Robot people who have been working on, like, Fringe and Lost are kind of burnt out on this kind of show, and they're branching out to do stuff that's either completely different, or, like, a bunch of them try and make a transition to movies, or end up working on shows that are more like human dramas without sort of like the hook. So at this point in time, you could have brought in anybody from, like, the main stable and it would have been improved probably. But again, when this show aired, Lost is over. Fringe is still, like, I can't remember what season of Fringe this would have started during, but like, those guys would have all been pretty wrapped up in that, I believe.
like, with every episode that I watch of Alcatraz, I look at it. I look at it as a really, really cool procedural that's trying to be something that it's not, and the writers unfortunately don't have the technical know-how, or they don't, or they just have no interest in making the story tighter to make it more intriguing for the audience. But with everything that Matt said, that at the time, the audience was just so burnt out on the mystery box element of the week of this episode. I completely understand why it failed, but just as a diehard Bad Robot person like Matt is, watching the show is really, really frustrating. And I do hope that in the remaining episodes that we have, that they give us some satisfying answers. I know for a fucking fact that they aren't going to give us all the answers. I know that. I absolutely fucking know that. But I just want some. Like, I would really, really appreciate for Rebecca's grandfather to come forward more into the picture, because this episode ends with him basically staring at her while she's sleeping. It's a nice round circle to the way that the episode started, with her basically hallucinating him sitting in a chair watching her sleep. So it's a nice roundabout way it's a nice round circle to end the episode on. But yeah, this episode was just a fucking wash, and I hope that next week's episode with a Oscar winner, hint hint, is a lot better. Matt, do you have anything else to say about this episode?
The only thing I'll say is I did look it up, and so Alcatraz was airing at the same time that the 8th episode of the 4th season of Fringe was airing.
Oh my god!
So like they were trying to sort of match these shows up, and it was basically Fringe season 4 that this synced up with, which makes sense to me, because the season 3 finale of Fringe is the pinnacle of Fringe, right? Like that is where the show, it's like, holy fuck, this show, like season 2 finale, season 3 finale, and then you know that like I'm mid on season 4, and then season 5 like really annoys the fuck out of me. But so it makes sense that like when Fringe fever had hit, they greenlit this show to start in the next January and pair it with Fringe. And it just, this was a time when Fringe was starting to suffer, and this show obviously suffered as a result. But it is interesting knowing that that was the timeline, because that totally makes sense why Fox would have wanted this. And they probably would have said, like, give us something that, like, you don't have to really use your brain, but if you like Fringe, you'll just leave the TV on. Like, you'll tune in because you like our other show, so we'll advertise both shows during each show. But yeah, I got nothing else to add, except I think you're right. Like, I hope next week, if we're going to have to spend more time with the 63s, then we might as well bring in a dude like Mahershala Ali, who, you know, you alluded to, and I'll just flat out say is in the next episode. And like, he would go on to win multiple Oscars, but even at this point, he was like a pretty heavy hitter in TV shows, even if he wasn't a household name. When he showed up on the screen in stuff like the 4400, you're like, holy fuck, who is this guy? This guy's amazing. So like, for him to be in Alcatraz, that's cool. So like, I'm looking forward to that next episode, and the fact that Tommy is on the, you know, the stoop. He's about to re-enter the picture. Let's bring it home in these final few episodes.
Thank you so much for listening. And thank you for being so patient with us as we go through Alcatraz here. But if you guys want to send us an email for whatever reason, we do still have an email. It's radio815@aol.com. You can search for Radio 815 anywhere on the internet and get access to our back catalog. You can watch us talk about Felicity, Alias, Fringe, a bunch of Bad Robot movies, and entitled a really, really bad movie called The Suburbs that was produced by JJ. Yeah, but seriously, if you want to listen to us and if you want to hear us talk about happier shit, just search Radio 815 on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. You'll see us being way more positive and a lot happier. But as we say goodbye for this week, I will ask you, Matt, if the good folks want to try and reach you, where can they go about doing that?
The best place that you'll have any chance at all is on Letterboxd, letterboxd.com/MDC3000. We can log some movies over there.
And guys, if you want to reach out to me and see what I'm doing on the interwebs and see what I'm thinking about as far as Bad Robot is concerned, the best place to reach me is on X, formerly known Twitter. I'm at CreekFanatic88, but thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as I say often, we'll talk back soon.
Radio 815 is a Balloonhead Productions presentation in association with Killer Newt Productions.